Rudeus and his party had finally made it to a coastal city. At the same time, Roxy and her party arrived via boat, but both parties failed to encounter each other. Rudeus and Eris soon discovered that, due to Ruijerd being a Supard, the fee to travel the ocean was too high for them to pay. With no solution in sight, Rudeus was once again contacted by Human God, who instructed him to buy food in a specific place. Rudeus soon stumbled upon a hungry vagrant and decided to feed her. The vagrant then revealed that she was the reincarnated demon emperor Kishirika Kashirisu and rewarded Rudeus with a demon eye that allowed him to see a few seconds into the future. Rudeus then used this power to save a man from harm. Having gotten used to his new ability, Rudeus decided to sell his staff to get enough money for Ruijerd's ticket, but Ruijerd himself dissuaded him from doing so, pointing out it would hurt Eris' feelings. Just then, the man that Rudeus had saved arrived and introduced himself as Gallus Cleaner. He offered to smuggle Ruijerd onto the ship, and in exchange, Rudeus and his party agreed to help him with a task. Roxy and her companions, Talhand and Ellen Elise, were desperately searching the coastal city for any sign of Paul's missing family, including Rudeus. Unfortunately, since Rudeus had been traveling under an alias, Roxy did not recognize him. During her exploration of the city, she came across Eris and Ruijerd sparring, but mistakenly assumed they were Supards and quickly ran away. After failing to find any information, Roxy and her party decided it was time to leave for the next town. However, Rudeus and his party were able to leave the city by sea after Gallus helped smuggle Ruijerd onto the ship, in return for Rudeus liberating some goods for him in Zantport. Upon reaching Zant, Rudeus headed straight to the smuggler's hideout. There, he discovered his mission was to liberate beast children being held captive by the smugglers. Ruijerd killed all the smugglers and escorted the children to safety while Rudeus stayed behind to free a magical dog. But, unbeknownst to him, he was ambushed and captured by a pair of beastmen who were looking to save the children and their sacred beast as well. Mistaking Rudeus to be one of the smugglers, they decided to take him to their village for questioning. Rudeus was captured in Doldia village, stripped of all his belongings, not even his clothes. He joked that it might awaken something inside him, but he wasn't so sure. He could easily break out of the cell, but he chose to stay put, not wanting to antagonize the villagers. He was later joined by Geese, another human prisoner who had done something to offend the villagers. Geese immediately called Rudeus his senpai and they discussed how cute the beast women were. It was a classic master and student relationship. Suddenly, the village was attacked by Gallus and his men. They set the village ablaze, determined to capture the beast children. Rudeus and Geese managed to escape, but Rudeus decided to help the villagers instead. He used his sacred water magic to put out the fire, and then he tried to fight Gallus. But it was no use, Gallus was too powerful for him. Suddenly, the sacred beast arrived to help them. With the beast's assistance, Rudeus, Geese, and the sacred beast managed to defeat Gallus once and for all. Just then, Ruijerd and Eris arrived. They explained that they had been delayed because they had been helping the Doldians wipe out the rest of the smuggling ring. The villagers thanked Rudeus for his help and apologized for falsely accusing him. Back at Fittoa, Eris' grandfather was blamed for the situation at the city after the mana surge, stripped of his position and executed before the king. Rudeus and his party had no choice but to stay in Doldia village for the next 3 months due to the start of the rainy season. During this time, Eris became friends with the beast children, including Tana, the daughter of Guys, the village's best warrior. However, when the name of Ghislaine was mentioned, the group was met with a negative reaction. Guys explained that she was his younger sister who had left the village long ago and was considered a traitor for refusing to become a village guardian. This sparked Tana's interest in sword fighting, and Eris gladly became her instructor. 3 months later, when the rains had stopped, Rudeus and his party were prepared to leave. Tana didn't want Eris to leave and they had a falling out. Guys convinced her to apologize by revealing that Ghislaine had been very rebellious when she was young and the village had allowed her to be taken away by an adventurer to be rid of her. He had come to regret letting Ghislaine leave without trying to understand her. With this, Rudeus and his party left for the holy country of Milis, and Geese hitched a ride with them. The party arrived in the capital city of Milishan, Milis. Geese went off on his own while Rudeus decided that everyone should take the day off. However, Rudeus noticed a kidnapping taking place and decided to follow the kidnappers. He confronted the kidnappers, only to be surprised to see his father, Paul, as their leader. Paul explained that their home village had been caught in the teleportation disaster, and he and his party had been searching for the missing villagers and their families for the past year and a half. When Rudeus told Paul about his journey from the demon continent, Paul asked Rudeus why he never tried to write a letter home, or even think about the other victims of the disaster. Rudeus had no answer to this and they both ended up in a fight, only to be broken up by Norn's intervention. Seeing Paul's party scorning him triggered memories of being shunned in his past life. Rudeus ran away, feeling embarrassed and ashamed. Meanwhile on Eris's side, determined to take on a goblin-slaying quest. But little did she know that this quest would lead her to an unexpected encounter with a boastful young mage named Cliff. As she was about to take on the quest, she witnessed a scene that made her pause. Cliff was in trouble and Eris quickly ran to the rescue. She had saved him, but then he had the audacity to call her ugly. Furious, Eris beat him up. Cliff then asked her to form a party with him, and though she was hesitant, Eris reluctantly agreed. But when they reached their destination, Eris was taken aback by Cliff's actions. Instead of slaying the goblins, he had simply burned them to ashes, leaving no evidence of the quest's completion. While on their way back, Eris and Cliff encountered a little girl and her guard, Therese, being attacked by a group of assassins. With no hesitation, Eris quickly charged forward and killed all of the assassins. After the battle, Therese asked Eris' name, and Eris, wanting to be more impressive than Rudeus, introduced herself as Ruijerd Supardia. With one of the assassins still alive, Ruijerd interrogated him before he died and learned that the assassins were allies of the Pope, who supported the idea of coexistence between humans and demons, which was something the Temple Knights and their leader the Archbishop opposed. After their adventure, Cliff asked Eris to marry him, claiming he must be more impressive than Rudeus. But when he saw the look on Eris' face when she thought of Rudeus, he quickly realized he stood no chance against her feelings for Rudeus and went home, dejected. It was then revealed that the dead assassins were actually Cliff's tutors. Eris returned to Rudeus and found him upset after his fight with Paul. Eris tried to comfort him, which Rudeus was grateful for. Geese made a visit to Paul, revealing that he was part of the same party and urged him to make amends with Rudeus. He reminded Paul that Rudeus was still a child. The thought of what could have happened to Rudeus filled Paul with dread and he decided to quit drinking. The next day, Paul and Rudeus met again. The atmosphere was tense and awkward, but eventually Rudeus realized that Paul misunderstood his intentions and was trying to apologize. They had a heart-to-heart and reconciled. Rudeus let them know that he would look for his family after escorting Eris home, even though her family was still missing. After saying goodbye to Rudeus, Paul learned from Geese that he would continue with the search for the rest of his family, traveling to places they had not checked yet. Meanwhile, Roxy's journey took her back to her home village, Mushoku. Despite the warm welcome from the villagers, Roxy felt a sense of displacement due to her inability to use telepathy, a common trait amongst her tribe. Roxy's parents, however, were eager to see their daughter again and asked her to stay. Roxy was hesitant, but ultimately decided to remain with her parents. They told her that Rudeus had visited the village 2 years prior, and Roxy was relieved to know that he was safe. After a short stay in Mushoku, Roxy and her companions continued on their journey across the demon continent in search of the rest of Rudeus' family. Rudeus had another dream where the human god appeared and gave him instructions on how to reunite with Lilia and Aisha, Rudeus' little sister. With hope in his heart, Rudeus set off for the kingdom of Chiron. Upon arriving, he wrote a letter to Roxy, who was a teacher in the palace. Rudeus then encountered Aisha, who was being chased by some pursuers. He saved her, but followed the human god's instructions and didn't reveal his identity. Aisha, however, thought that her brother was a pervert because she had found the box of Roxy's panties that Lilia has been saving for Rudeus. Rudeus was then summoned to the palace for an audience with Roxy. However, this was a trap set by the 7th Prince of Chiron, Pax. He had Lilia held hostage, and revealed that he intended to use Rudeus as bait to capture Roxy, because he had become in love with her. He revealed that Roxy had left the castle a long while ago. Rudeus was placed in a magic cell, where all of his magic abilities were nullified and absorbed. He had no way of escaping, and his only hope was that someone would come to his rescue. Waiting in his cell when he was suddenly met by Zenoba, the 3rd Prince of Chiron, who was a huge fan of Rudeus's work. Zenoba had heard of the lifelike sculptures Rudeus had made of Roxy and Ruijerd, and wanted to become his apprentice. Rudeus explained that only Pax could undo the seal on his cell, so Zenoba promised to take care of the situation for him. Meanwhile, Pax's guards had smuggled Ruijerd, Eris, and Aisha into the palace in return for rescuing their families, who had been taken hostage by Pax. When Zenoba captured Pax, Aisha revealed that Zenoba was a blessed child, a person born with superhuman strength. He was known as the Decapitator Prince. Zenoba then coerced Pax into freeing Rudeus, while Pax's guards refused to help upon learning that their families were safe. Lilia and Aisha were then arranged to be sent home, and Lilia returned Roxy's panties to Rudeus, as well as a necklace Sylphiette had made for him on his 10th birthday. Rudeus then gifted his forehead protector to Aisha as a keepsake. As she left, Aisha apologized to Rudeus for calling him a pervert, revealing that she had known his true identity all along. Finally, Pax and Zenoba were exiled from the Chiron kingdom due to the scandal, under the guise of studying abroad. Rudeus, Eris, and Ruijerd continue on their journey when they stumbled upon the dragon god, Orsted. Eris and Ruijerd were overcome with fear and were unable to move, but Rudeus, disregarding their warnings, stepped forward to talk with Orsted. Orsted asked Rudeus about the human god, believing him to be one of his apostles, and attacked him. Eris and Ruijerd tried to protect Rudeus, but they were quickly defeated by Orsted, who mortally wounded him. As Rudeus lay dying, he encountered the human god, who revealed to him that Orsted was afflicted with several curses, including one that made all living beings fear him. Miraculously, Rudeus was not affected by it. Despite not knowing the human god's real intentions, Rudeus thanked him for his help. However, instead of dying, Rudeus returned to the world of the living. Rudeus later learned that Orsted's companion, Nanahoshi, had interceded on his favor and convinced Orsted to save him and spare him, before the two left. During the night, Rudeus reveals to Ruijerd the truth about the human god, and the fact that the Supard curse on him is slowly fading away. The next day, the group arrive in the ruins of Rudeus' hometown, which brings back childhood memories to him. Ruijerd then announces that since Rudeus and Eris are now strong enough to take care of themselves, he will take his leave. Rudeus and Eris bid Ruijerd farewell with tears in their eyes. The party then arrives in Roa, which is also in ruins. There, Eris reunites with Ghislaine and her servant Alphonse. Alphonse reveals that Eris' parents both died due to the teleportation incident and her grandfather was executed by the king. He also tells them that a branch of the Greyrat family has offered to let Eris marry into them to keep the family line alive, though Ghislaine is against it. Rudeus also finds out that Sylphiette was not found dead, but her whereabouts remain unknown. That night, Eris enters Rudeus' tent and has sex with him. The next morning, however, Rudeus wakes up to find that Eris and Ghislaine have left to an unknown location, leaving him distraught and confused. In a state of depression, he had become a recluse, secluding himself from all social interaction. His days were filled with nothingness, as he often drifted away to the past, haunted by flashbacks of his old life. Eris had gone on a journey, accompanied by her friend Ghislaine. She had set out to get stronger so that she could protect Rudeus and defeat Orsted. Meanwhile, Ruijerd had saved some travelers from beasts, and his heroic deeds had earned him praise, despite his identity as a Supard being revealed. Zenoba and Geese were also on their own journeys, and they often thought of Rudeus. Guys and Tana were continuing to train together in Doldia village, honing their swordsmanship skills. Roxy had encountered Kishirika, and in a kind-hearted act of innocence, had paid her enormous bar tab. In exchange, Kishirika had used her demon eyes to locate the whereabouts of Rudeus' family. Lilia and Aisha had successfully reunited with Paul and Norn, while Zenith was located in the labyrinth city of Rapan on the Greyrat continent. Upon this information, Roxy and her party had immediately made preparations to leave for the Greyrat continent. Rudeus was still in a depressed state, but after having a dream about Zenith, his determination to find her was reignited. He remembered that he had a duty to fulfill, and he overcame his insecurities to continue his journey. Elsewhere, Sylphiette was trying to convince an unknown group to recruit Rudeus into their ranks. Thanks for watching our recap of the second season of Mushoku Tensei. The third season is still not out yet, but when it is, we'll be sure to have a recap of it here. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all our content. See you next time.